Welcome one and all to the first ever episode of Unsolicited Fan Overreactions, the series in which I will react to every Blackhawks game of the season. And today we'll be overreacting to Game 1, the first game in the history of the Utah Yeti. And no, I'm not going to call them the hockey club. But before we overreact, we have to get through some important stick taps. Firstly, Nolan Allen gets stick taps for his first career game in the NHL. Apart from Alex Vlasic, Nolan Allen is probably the best young, pure defensive defenseman in the Blackhawks system. And in a game full of mistakes from defensemen, it was so encouraging to see Allen have a really tidy and unnoticeable game, which is a huge compliment for a player of his skill set. Secondly, major stick taps go to Utah owner Ryan Smith and everybody else responsible for putting this night together. Sure, it wasn't completely smooth sailing, but being able to pull this off in such a short period of time is remarkable. The crowd was buzzing the entire night. I remember at one point in the game, they were loudly booing the referees because they thought a Utah player was kicked out of the face-off circle unfairly. They were invested in every aspect of this game in every moment, and it genuinely was a playoff atmosphere. My first overreaction of this video is I believe that Utah is about to become a great hockey area. They're combining owners who genuinely care about the sport with fans that are buying everything the team is selling them and a team that's young and extremely skilled. And that is an excellent combination. And Connor Bedard spoke to the media before the game about the atmosphere, and he emphasized the importance of starting the game strong. Take a listen.
Yeah, I think we just maybe have to get through that first 10 minutes. They're going to be fired up. Their crowd's going to be into it, but I think we can also use that energy of that first game and everything. But I think with just the anticipation for them, if we can match their intensity to start the game, then I think we'll be good.
Now, the Blackhawks actually began this game reasonably well and generated the first big chance, as the aforementioned Nolan Allen demonstrated a bit of offensive creativity with this excellent back pass off the end boards to Jason Dickinson, who was unable to finish on the play. However, and it's almost hard to believe this was the only shot on target that the Blackhawks generated in the entire first period. But this wasn't just a case of a team beginning the season slowly or a team that was overwhelmed by Utah's talent or the atmosphere of the stadium. This was a case of poor coaching decisions. Now, before you all grab your pitchforks to say things like Luke Richardson deserves credit for how the Blackhawks fought back in the final two periods, I completely agree with you. Richardson does deserve credit for accepting his mistakes and going back to the more obvious line combinations which contributed to the Blackhawks outplaying the Utah Yeti for the majority of the last two periods. But they could have easily won this game if they didn't waste the first period altogether. And a big reason they wasted that period was because Luke Richardson made some questionable, maverick lineup decisions that he didn't have to. And all of those decisions ended up backfiring. So let's break them down one at a time. One lineup decision that I've questioned all offseason was the decision to separate Alex Vlasic from Seth Jones on the first defensive pairing. After Vlasic signed to a 6-year extension, I would have loved to see him develop more chemistry with Jones on the first pairing, but Vlasic was instead put on the second pairing in favor of Alec Martinez. To me, it's not a coincidence that Vlasic had a primary assist minutes after being reunited with Seth Jones, and Martinez also played better on the second pairing than he did on the first pairing. But that wasn't even close to the biggest questionable lineup decision, because Ilya Mikheyev was put on the first line with Connor Bedard and Teravainen, and that makes no sense for so many reasons. I thought the entire reason the Blackhawks went out and signed not one but two top 6 players this offseason, despite not planning to contend for the playoffs, was because they didn't want Connor Bedard to have to play with bottom 6 players like he did last season. So why was middle 6 speedy grinder Ilya Mikheyev playing with Bedard, after he spent all of last season dragging down Elias Pettersson's offensive production, and after not even playing a minute with Bedard or Teravainen at any point in training camp or preseason to develop some chemistry? And Luke Richardson's explanation for this puzzling decision was almost worse than the decision itself, because his answer began with still trying things. You spent almost the entire training camp scrimmaging your 5-on-5 lines, and you still need to try brand new line combinations in game 1 of the regular season? There was no thought process behind this. You can't say that speed is everything when you healthy scratch 2 of your fastest skaters, whatever the reasoning was behind scratching Reichel and Athanasiou. And you can't say that two-way play and forecheck was the only factor when there were 2 different two-way players, Foligno and Dickinson, who at least had chemistry with Bedard from last season. So why would you choose a speedy two-way bottom 6 player who's never played a minute with Bedard or Teravainen as your first line solution? I like Ilya Mikheyev as a third liner, but to nobody's surprise at all, putting him on the first line with 0 time in preseason or training camp to develop chemistry just didn't work. That line generated 0 shot attempts in the entire first period, and Mikheyev's best moment in this game occurred after he was put back on the third line where he belonged all along. But even that wasn't the worst line of decision, because it's now time to talk about that power play. Now, the power play went 0 for 3 on the night, and it was so bad that when the Blackhawks drew their third power play of the night, Leah Hextall joked that they should try to decline it, and she was honestly correct. Every single time the Blackhawks were generating any sort of momentum at 5-on-5 in the second period, a power play came along to completely end that momentum. Now, under normal circumstances, we'd probably take this opportunity to discuss how Taylor Hall had a few too many turnovers on the man advantage, or how Philip Kurashev should have started the year on the first power play unit because of his prior chemistry with Connor Bedard, or, as Teravainen mentioned after the game, how Utah's ice surface and boards were a bit unpredictable, which didn't help a unit trying to develop chemistry. But I'm going to completely ignore the first power play unit struggles, because that second power play unit was the worst power play combination I have ever seen in all my years watching hockey. This wasn't just a case of new players developing chemistry on the unit. This was a case of this combination of players will never work in any circumstance on the power play in any scheme ever. Now, I wish I had a bit more time to dissect exactly why this power play unit didn't work. I am on a time crunch to release this video because I am traveling later in the day, but one interesting conversation that we had on the Ringside General Discord channel, link in the description below, was about how the Blackhawks power play system relies on speed when entering the zone. So which genius in the Blackhawks coaching staff thought it was a good idea to put Patrick Maroon, Craig Smith, and Ryan Donato, the 3 slowest skaters in the entire lineup, alongside Alec Martinez, the slowest skating defenseman in the entire lineup, on a single power play unit? Do you not understand your own power play zone entry ideas? And I'm not even going to pinpoint the irony of scratching Reichel and Athanasiou, 2 of your fastest skaters who also have power play experience. But even if you were intent on sending some message to those 2 players that their roles are not safe, the power play unit was still inexcusable. You had more talented players available to you. You had players more suited to your specific power play scheme available to you, and you chose 4th line slow grinders instead. It makes no sense. The Blackhawks even tried to make an adjustment to the second power play unit, but the adjustment that they chose was sticking TJ Brody as a second defenseman on the unit. What century is this coaching staff living in? Why wasn't Nick Foligno on either power play unit? Last year, the first power play unit was anemic until Foligno was put there, so why was he on neither power play unit to start the season? And if you value speed and winning puck battles so much, why wasn't Jason Dickinson on either power play unit a season after he scored 20 goals for you? And this one is even more baffling than those 2 lineup decisions. If you thought that Ilya Mikheyev was good enough to play at 5-on-5 with Connor Bedard without stunting him offensively because his speed and puck winning ability brings something to that line, why wasn't he on either power play unit? That's the same skill set you value on the power play, so where is the consistency? Where is the thought process? How does any of this make any sense? And before you comment that the Blackhawks power play will get better as the season progresses, I know it will, because it genuinely can't get any worse. But we're discussing Luke Richardson as a coach here, so it's important to differentiate between a coach that makes smart lineup decisions and good adjustments from a coach that just throws everything at the wall no matter how little sense it makes and just hopes something sticks. The reality is that by his own admission, Luke Richardson still needed to try brand new 5-on-5 combinations after scrimmaging 5-on-5 for the entire training camp, and that the second power play unit was worse than any combination that Jeremy Colleton ever put out. So you can give credit to Luke Richardson for accepting his mistakes and adjusting the 5-on-5 lines as the game progressed, but he should still be criticized for how much his initial lines didn't make any sense. A big reason that the team outplayed Utah for the entire third period was that they didn't have any power plays to disrupt that momentum, and that's just not how a good team operates. So overall, Luke Richardson had a very poor game, and I'm hoping to see some major coaching adjustments as he moves forward. Now, my last two overreactions will be positive ones because the Blackhawks deserve a lot of credit for how they fought back in this game. And my third overreaction is that Philip Kurashev will be a huge part of the future of the Blackhawks. I think I've been consistently higher on Kurashev than the consensus, because I believe he was never given a consistent role as a younger player to learn his position and to develop chemistry with line mates. He finally had that opportunity last season playing alongside Bedard, and unsurprisingly, he had his breakout campaign. Now, a lot of people expected that to be a one-year wonder and attributed all of his success to Bedard, but I'm not willing to restrict his ceiling that much. Kurashev once again had his position shift to start this season. He went from playing right wing for Bedard to centering the second line, and it again took him a period to adjust to the new position. He had a rough moment defensively early in the first period, which led to a Utah goal, but his line was the best line to open the second period and was noticeably positive for the rest of the game. If he's able to offensively elevate a middle six line when the Blackhawks are contending, he will be the ultimate luxury piece. My fourth and final overreaction is an open-ended one, and I want you guys to fill in the blank. Connor Bedard will score blank points this season. The most recent Every Shift episode ended with an interesting question.
Where are the goals going to come from? I mean, we had 179 goals last year, right? I mean, if we're going to be competitive, we got to significantly increase our goal production.
The Blackhawks scored 2 goals in this game, and Connor Bedard had, you guessed it, 2 points. As solid as most of the team looked towards the end of the game, the offensive output of this team this season will likely begin and end with the 19-year-old phenom. Even though he slowed down to a certain degree towards the end of last season, he just seems like the kind of player who won't be affected by a sophomore slump the way that some young players are. So I want you to fill in that blank. How many points do you think Connor Bedard will put up this season? Let me know in the comment section. If you reach this point in the video, you are the ultimate hockey addict. Come treat your hockey addiction with me by subscribing to this channel and by joining our Discord community. The link is in the description below for constant hockey talk. I'll see you down in the comment section and in the next video. Until next time.